Hello and welcome to Talkernate History, the podcast where we,
Matt
and Max, talk about works of alternate history scenarios, and history in general. This episode, we're going to be discussing fan-submitted short stories. I never thought I'd see the day when we'd be able to do something like this.
They grow up so fast, Max.
Oh my goodness, it's so awesome. I'm just over the moon looking at all this stuff people have sent us. In fact, they have sent us so much that we're actually recording this before the due date, just because there's no way.
Yeah, we can't fit it all into one, and we don't want to do like a 3-hour long episode.
We've got several stories right here that we're going to talk about. It is a portion of the stories we've already received. There's more to come. We'll cover that in a subsequent episode. But shoot. Let's kind of explain what the parameters of this was. There aren't very many. Basically, try to keep it below 10 pages and 15 pages at maximum. Any time in history, any genre. We probably should have narrowed that down a little bit, but hey.
Oh, and there's, as we said, can't have magic or science fiction.
We did receive some time travel, some magic, some things that were not realistic, and unfortunately, they are disqualified.
Yes.
At some point, we'll kind of briefly go over them, but for now, let's just talk about the major stories that we've received in the last week or two now. Mm-hmm. So the first guy that sent us stories is this fellow named Pierce Jones. So Mr. Jones, he actually sent us 4 stories, which is, whoa. Yeah, you know, we should have told people to just send one. We did not think to say that, but hey, you know.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So the first story I opened up was called Apocalypse Emu, which is about the Second Emu War. A bunch of emus are in the United States in the modern era.
Teleported there.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're teleported to the United States, and I'm so sorry. Teleportation does not exist, so... Disqualified. Cannot talk about it. I told him about that, and he said, good, that was the worst one. But the other story he sent us is called A Political History of the CSA and the USA. This is a long one. Technically, this is actually longer than 15 pages. It's 18 pages, and it's like single space. It's really... because this is a very dense story, a very dense story. It goes all the way from the Civil War
to the present,
to the literal present, like right now. Yeah, there's like coronavirus stuff in there, you know. And I can tell it takes some inspiration from Turtle Dove with the timeline 191. Maybe it's just, you know, concurrent ideas going together. Like there's a version of World War I where the United States is aligned with Germany, and the CSA is more on the side of the Entente, and you know,
and the U.S. keeps on getting defeated. Actually,
yeah, they get defeated twice in a row.
They lose World War I and World War II.
Yeah,
there's like a general invasion during World War II, which seems to do severe damage that kind of goes away very quickly.
Yeah. So another thing that's kind of interesting about this is that the parallelism is on steroids in this story, because you've got like the same people from our history showing up in this world where
150 years after the divergence.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like we should probably be really diverging a lot. I mean, Turtle Dove, they had like the Lafayette political dynasty, and you had like Charles Lafayette, and then you know, some other guy, you know, and you had Daniel MacArthur, who's the same guy but different name, you know. But they're just the same guy. Yeah, you know.
And I get it. I mean, it's tough, like to do the sort of years of rice and salt thing, because I don't want to be overly critical, because that is tough to go. Because I mean, truly, if you wanted to make it accurate, as 150 years later, like everyone would be different. But like, if you're like, oh, and then you know, and then Dave Wilson was the president, and then Jimmy Jones was the Secretary of Agriculture. Like, I mean, it's hard for us. We like parallelism because it gives us a point of reference.
Yeah.
So I get that.
And I mean, to be honest, we also enjoy complaining about it. It's fun to nitpick little things, and you know, that's kind of the fun of alternate history, where you know, you get these parallel things, these winks and nudges and jokes and stuff.
So yeah, for sure. But stuff like 9/11 happens on the same day in the same location, which it's kind of hard to believe that would in a world in which the United States and the Confederacy still exist.
9/11 happens on the same day. What are the chances, But also they mentioned that a truck bomb blows up like some federal building in the American embassy in Richmond at the same time. Kind of similar to like the embassy bombings by Osama bin Laden, not on 9/11, but beforehand.
And stuff like Bill Clinton is president of the South and stuff like that. And
George H.W. Bush is a United States president. One wonders, is he a war hero in this universe as well?
I don't know.
Does
he even exist?
Yeah.
I guess the possibilities are endless, Max.
They really, really are endless. One little fun thing is Richard Jewell is a terrorist in this world.
Yeah, he actually was the guy who bombs the Olympics.
unlike in reality. So like everything is the same, but everything is also different. So, interesting story. There's a lot of cool stuff. At the very end, there's a bibliography filled with fictional alternate history works in this universe.
Yeah, which is really good, which I like. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And some do the alternate history where like it's a story that sort of mimics our world. It's kind of like The Grasshopper, Life's Heavy, and Man in the High Castle, where it has the basic outlines of our world is the same, but like how they get there is different, which is kind of interesting, which I really liked.
Very well done there. We're not really going to talk about the Chinese Civil War one, like the nationalists win and they're more Soviet aligned. And
in a KMT run, China gets more anti-American and involved in like aiding Iran and stuff like that. Is my recollection on that one.
There's like once again 9/11 happens the exact same way and on the exact same date, but it's Chechens that do it in that world, I believe, if I remember correctly. So that one's kind of interesting. It's a lot shorter, so we're not really talking about it as much. Yeah. We read that whole the whole thing of the first one.
Yeah.
And finally, Believe in America, which is a story about Mitt Romney winning 2012.
The 2012 presidential election.
Yeah.
And it's a good, interesting one. The diversion. This one is much more. The diversion is not as big, so obviously the changes that ripple aren't as big.
Yeah. The parallelism in this story is totally fine. Yeah. I have no problem.
It makes more sense because it's not 150 years later, it's 8 years later.
Exactly, yeah. So when the same sorts of things happen, like, oh, there's an Ebola scare. It's like, sure, yeah, that makes perfect sense that would also happen in this world,
Yeah.
So
basically, in this one, Mitt Romney wins the 2012 presidential election against Obama, and then he wins re-election in 2016. So he's a two-term president. It is a pretty standard Republican administration for 2 terms. And a lot of things that happen kind of the same or roughly the same as they occur in reality.
Qasem Soleimani also gets assassinated by the United States in this story, as in real life, which is not ridiculous.
But COVID is apparently tamped down very quickly, according to it.
Somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
But that's okay. I get it. I mean, there has to be enough divergence so it's not just like everything happened the exact same except Mitt Romney was president.
Right. I mean, it makes you wonder, like, with near misses in the past, like, people would make fun of, swine flu. The original SARS outbreak didn't really affect things.
Could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe that was just we were lucky kind of thing. And with all the vagaries of real life, sure, yeah, maybe some people got sick, but not enough for it to explode as it did in our timeline. But
and there's also Howard Schultz, who's the head of Starbucks, wins the presidential election in 2020 as the Democratic nominee.
That's right. Yes. And I really gotta hand it to Pierce Jones here. He gets nitty gritty on the details. He talks about cabinet appointments.
Yeah. Rand Paul is the Republican nominee, and it talks about like his flat tax proposal and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets into the percentage too. Like
14.5%.
14.5. See, for me, it's 999. That's mine. But 14.5, that's okay too, I guess. But I enjoyed this story. I think this is the one I liked the most of Pierce Jones's. The CSA one was crazy, but I feel like the parallelism was just too overboard for me. I like the interesting Romney thing, and I gotta hand it to him. If this was in one of those like Minister Boris and other things that didn't happen, short story compilations, it would fit in perfectly fine. I think it's that kind of story.
Absolutely. No, yeah. I agree.
Here's one that I remember you really, really liked. Skirmish at Marcoing?
I think it's Marcoing, yeah. This is a short one. This is by Blake, and this is like about 3 pages long, and it lays out an encounter which people say is apocryphal, although I'm pretty sure it really did happen, between a British soldier named Henry Tandy and Adolf Hitler. And Henry Tandy was a British soldier who supposedly or most likely encountered Hitler in the last days, like October 1918, and saw him and saw that he was injured and basically took mercy on him and didn't shoot him from across no man's land. And then obviously leads to our history, and apparently he expressed great, regret about that later on. But in this one, he does not take mercy and shoots him right between the eyes with a 303. And then he like walks up and like sees him and pulls out his like dog tags and said, "Oh, I just killed a guy named Adolf Hitler. Interesting." And then just kind of goes on. But it's well written and it's well paced, and it's like this perfect little snippet, and it doesn't have to go into the implications of that. It's just like this. I like it. Some do the 10,000 foot view, as a teacher, some of my teachers would say, and then others do the view from 10 feet. And I like this view from 10 feet. And this is a very easy, how believable could that be? Like anything could have just changed his mind to pull the trigger rather than not. And no one would have been like...
There's nothing implausible
yeah,
about that
absolutely.
at all. And this is also something that even like someone who's uninitiated, a layman, will be like, I get it. Okay, I understand. You make a story about like... what if Bonar Law went here instead of there? Like what if Anthony Bevan went to the Foreign Office instead of the Treasury? Like that's what most people are going to have no clue.
A little bit hard to digest for a lot of people.
This works quite well. A nice bit of flash fiction,
No, I really like this one. It was just easy, fun, quick read.
There's another one on here, one that I quite liked. I'm the Napoleon guy between the two of us.
That's true, you are.
It's called Napoleon, A Friend to His Britannic Majesty by Albert King. And this is the first story we received with fake footnotes in them.
Yes, fake footnotes.
Oh my God, it's so
fake
good.
Endnotes, fake footnotes, pick them, choose them, don't matter. Either one, both.
We use the term interchangeably. They're both good.
Yes.
Both types of notes.
I guess that's true. I guess Peter Sross is endnotes, not footnotes, but you know what we mean.
Yeah. So this is kind of interesting. It starts off, the point of divergence is the War of 1812 in the United States. Basically, Napoleon has sent over military advisors and material and money to the United States and propped up their military. The administration picks Andrew Jackson to lead a force up into Quebec and push in there, and they get initial success by doing that. That scares the crap out of the British, who are in Spain at the time fighting the Peninsular War. They pull out immediately, send tons of guys to Canada.
And they send the Duke of Wellington.
That's right. Yes, your boy. And they make it there. We don't get some kind of crazy America takes Canada kind of thing.
They're in fact repulsed.
Yeah.
What a terrible tragedy.
Oh, good. That we live in the cursed timeline now because of it.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
There's a beautiful timeline out there where the United States includes all of Canada.
Where Sean Maloney is like a crazy, I love
America.
I love America, yes. Instead of being that with Canada. But yeah, so the situation in the War of 1812 solidifies. There's no real gains on either side. But the importance of all that is that the British have been distracted. And now Spain is now 100% in the hands of Jose Bonaparte. Yes.
Jose.
The French work out a deal with the Portuguese to keep them from causing problems with them, and then that way the French are able to concentrate more on the Germans and the Swedish as well.
And basically the 1813 campaign for Napoleon, rather than ending in his defeat, ends with him crushing the Prussians, driving the Swedish from the European continent. No, from not the full European continent.
They have to go
Goodbye,
to space.
Sweden. Goodbye, Bernadotte.
Remember when I told you I'd kill you last, Bernadotte?
I lied. No. No, in this one, though...
Because they owned Pomerania, so they had a presence in...
Yes, ejected them from the southern Baltic coast. And Bonaparte is smart in that Napoleon, come on, what am I doing?
Bonaparte.
Napoleon agrees to basically give a lot of extra territory to the Prussians and pay money to them, basically to get them on his side. So Prussia agrees to stay on the side of Napoleon, thus consolidating his hold on Europe.
Setting up a balance of power, They make Westphalia and Bavaria independent states from Austria to kind of check them a little bit. And the British see the writing on the wall, so they sue for peace. Talleyrand.
Yeah, Talleyrand, I guess. Yeah.
Talleyrand Paul goes to London and negotiates with them and works out this peace deal. So Britain and Sweden give up all of their holdings in like Germany or whatever, and that's given to Prussia. And then a bunch of the money that was going to go to Prussia from Britain is instead redirected to go to the United States in thanks for their help in ensuring this victory for Napoleon. And the Russians are kind of the odd man out. Oh, Poland is made an independent kingdom.
Yes, no longer a duchy.
It gets an upgrade, yes.
No longer on the level of Luxembourg.
Skipping the Grand Duchy step, just going straight to kingdom.
Yes, that's right.
And it's talked about at the end of this that like all parties are pretty happy with this. Edmund Burke himself gives a speech in the House of Commons where he hails Bonaparte as a friend to his Brittanic Majesty, hence the name of the story.
Yeah.
Yay. The arch-conservative himself just accepts Bonaparte as part of the normal European order. And there's a funny little bit. It talks about how all this stuff, it's resolved in 1814, and it says, and peace in Europe was ensured for the next 100 years.
There's something inevitable about 1914, isn't there?
Something about that year.
Just strikes me. There's something about that year.
So it makes me wonder, like, what is this screwed up version of the World War that happens as a result of all this? I don't know.
It'd be fun to explore, but that's so far out. Yeah. But there's also some great notes in there. I like the one. There's a mention about Napoleon visiting the U.S. in 1830 on a trip. And also a book called Albion's Greed. Like it.
Yeah, if it's 1830, I guess maybe he's meeting President Andrew Jackson at that point,
Yeah, why not?
But anything's possible.
Andy.
Maybe it's Henry Clay. Who can say?
Henry Clay. That's right.
These canals are amazing.
Yeah, I love these canals.
I got to put these canals in Paris. Oh, my goodness. Oh. This reminds me, there was we did the Napoleon options, and they actually did a re-release recently where they added a bunch of new stories, and one of them is a Battle of New Orleans story. Somehow the French are involved in that.
Yeah, we need to get that.
That might be fun to look at some
get
point.
Hold of it.
A miniature episode for like 3 stories or whatever.
So next up is The March by Wazmaz. And this one was a really fun one.
Yeah. It's in the style of a Billy Mitchell's overt act.
Ah, love it.
Which is one of the most interesting forms of stories. That was done
It's one of the hardest probably to write because
you
really got to...
Yes. William Sanders, he did Billy Mitchell's overt act.
He did.
And to explain what we mean by that, it's like a bunch of excerpts from books, magazines, newspaper articles, all kinds of random things. And it's like thrown in, willy-nilly, and you get like an idea of this different world as a result.
No, and it's great. And in this one, the deviation basically is that the Russians win the Polish-Soviet War, and it's maneuvering outside of Warsaw, and basically the Russians get an advantage and they defeat the Polish. And that leads to Red Poland in the 1920s.
There's like a bunch of partisan activity in Poland, so they're distracted for several years before they can start moving against Germany. And that's the big question is like, what's gonna Britain and France are looking at the situation and they're thinking we need to have a Germany that's in our camp, and it needs to be strong so it can resist the Soviets. So there's like it's so cool.
Well, first of all, there's a great map that shows from the campaign in Poland itself with the Soviets. We really liked.
Love a good map. Love. There was a user who sent us a email recently where they did like a map of that Panama Canal and Nicaragua Canal. In the Nicaragua
World War
Canal
II thing, yeah.
Yeah, like the Nicaragua Canal is Japanese and the American is Panama, and they're like fighting one another. Like
I liked that.
It was so well done.
It was great.
Yeah. And this is kind of similar to that kind of thing in there. And little things like diary entries and stuff. There's even like a secret MI6 report telling agents to try to prop up the NSADP, the Nazi party, and then this other far right German party, like giving them money and guns and stuff because they want to take over the Weimar government. They want to like set up a puppet regime.
Mm-hmm. I liked it, but it's done in the style of like an official government memo, and it looks very realistic.
Yeah.
And there's even got like a signature at the bottom.
It's so well done. Yeah. God, there's a part where it's a transcript from a YouTube video, and it's this guy named Indy Nidell. I showed you a little bit of this guy's work.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, it's so awesome. It's like this guy talking about this event that happened in this other universe's history. It's so cool. It's like Between Two Wars, episode 4.
Yeah, I know. Which implies in this world that there's another world war coming.
Oh, right. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. But it's interesting here. So what happens is that because of what's happening in Poland and these actions by the British and the French, there basically is a Nazi coup in like the early 20s.
And a German civil war comes as a result of that.
Yes. And then the Russians, it's implied that the Russians then invaded 1925.
My only criticism of this story is that I wish it would just go on further. I would love to see more stuff in this style thrown in there about this perspective Second World War. But maybe the idea...
Well, the implications would be very interesting. What does this world look like? Like, holy crap, like the Soviets are like on the Rhine in like 1926. How are the... And it also implies that like the French invade part of Germany to like consolidate it and stuff like that.
Well, they occupied the Rhineland during the 20s, so it's kind of a similar idea. There's a book in here. It's like an excerpt. Oh, Trotsky's in charge of the Soviet Union because he was the head of the Red Army during the Polish-Soviet War, so he's like basking in the glory of this great victory.
Yes. No ice picks for him.
Yes, armored trains for everyone. Yes.
Aha.
Wonderful. Pins Nez for everybody. Yes.
That's right. No, this was a really good one. And I liked it. It looked great, had a good read, and it did the Billy Mitchell style story very well, which I liked. Yeah. And it really sort of pinned down the that, and it just flowed together, chronologically flowed together very well.
Do we want to do the Paris story?
There was that inaugural bullet. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
We forgot about that one. Maybe we'll do that one in the next one.
Let me look at it. Maybe I'll remember.
I want to get into some of the details of that one because it was military focused. So why don't we do either Paris or Barbarossa or one of those?
Yeah. Maybe we'll do 3 episodes. Who knows?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not?
we can do anything we want.
We can do anything we want. This belongs to us. Damn it.
Yeah.
Damn it. This is ours.
Sure. How about Paris first? And then we'll end with...
We'll always have Paris.
There's a TNG episode, We'll Always Have Paris. It's fucking terrible.
A TNG?
The Next Generation Star Trek.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not a Star Trek guy.
No, I don't.
It's bad. It's so bad. But there's a cool matte painting
We'll
of
always have Paris, Texas.
Yes. Haha. That guy who's in that movie, he's an alien. Do you know who I'm talking about? Have you seen Paris, Texas? The guy in the baseball hat? Okay. There's a movie called Paris, Texas. Oh. Sorry. No worries.
I got
it. Paris. So there's a story in here about Paris. It's called The Fall of Paris, 1914 by Frederick Keel. And we were very, very surprised by this. I really like
this story. Very good.
Yeah.
And it basically involved a successful Schlieffen plan getting to Paris. So basically the Germans succeed at the Battle of the Marne and they drive into Paris itself. However, they don't take the whole city in 1914. And it actually is partially in the Billy Mitchell style. It has these various diary entries by this fake person interspaced with who's like a taxi driver in Paris, interspaced with text talking about what's happening generally. And basically the northern half of the city falls into German hands. And there's street fighting with militias and French troops, and they slow it down that the Germans get to the Seine. They actually knock down the Eiffel Tower with artillery because they think it'd be used for observation, which 100% it would have been.
Makes perfect sense, yeah. There's even a picture that's been inserted in there as well.
And so at that point, then they stalemate.
Yeah, and there's some fun little details in there. I can tell the author knows a lot about Paris geography because they're talking about all these streets.
The Gare Montparnasse, the Gare du Nord,
the
Rue de Rivoli,
okay,
the Champ de Mars.
You've been to the Gare du Nord.
I have. I haven't spent. My time in Paris was pretty limited. It was mainly as transit to get to other places. But I've taken a train out of the Gare du Nord.
Mm-hmm.
It's gigantic.
For your trip to Normandy, yes?
Yes, and the other World War II stuff we were going, there was transiting to going to other areas. But I've been to Gare de l'Est, Gare du Nord, and Gare de Saint-Lazare. There's a ton of them in Paris. There's Gare Montparnasse. There's other ones that run, because they go like the Gare du Nord, their lines run north. Gare de Saint-Lazare like runs west towards like Brittany and Normandy. Gare de l'Est goes towards like Metz and Strasbourg, and then I think Montparnasse goes south. They go in all. There's a ton of train stations in Paris.
Yeah, and it's very much a hub, which is why they need to keep this city, because if they lose it, they're kind of screwed.
Absolutely, yeah,
more than kind of screwed.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that, but the French hold on.
Yeah, they use tanks. They end up using tanks.
Yeah, it's funny. It talks about the Second Battle of Paris in 1916, and the British there's British troops in Paris, and they use tanks. Mm-hmm. In fact, they use, and it talks about like they're not very good in a city because you can throw heavy furniture from above on them, which I thought was pretty funny. But it talks about like 6 tanks attack over the Pont Neuf, which is a bridge in Paris, but like the bridge collapses and like 5 of them are lost and stuff like that. And I really like that.
And then the Americans end up being called in to help relieve the Paris cauldron.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
they cut off, like, apparently the Americans launch a pincer attack that like surrounds Paris and cuts it off. And eventually it says the Allies drive on the German frontier and win. And it appears to be November of 1918, roughly.
Finalized in 1919, but that's how it was in real life too.
Yeah.
The Treaty of Bordeaux, because they've moved the capital, obviously, because it was occupied. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like how the capital gets moved to Philadelphia in those Turtledove books.
Yeah, it goes to Bordeaux.
I wish it expounded upon when the Americans joined. It was a little unclear.
Yeah, that'd be fun. It'd been interesting.
Yeah.
I like that, the idea of the Americans coming to the rescue. My God, in 1917, 1918, Paris is still partially occupied by the Germans. And instead, there's like basically trench warfare going on inside the city.
And as part of the peace at the end of this, it is an extremely harsh peace.
It is a Carthaginian peace, the Treaty of Bordeaux. Germany is broken up into 4 or 5 different countries.
I believe it's 4, yes. And they're like under permanent occupation, but it works. It works.
Yeah,
they still exist to this day.
The story just references the Great War. There is no mention of the Second Great War or World War II or the Second World War or.
There's a book mentioned, and it's something like Greater Bavarian Press or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was very good.
Yeah, here's the states. The first one is Greater Saxony. The second is Brandenburg and Northern Germany. The third one is Hessian Westphalia, and the fourth one is Bavaria-Württemberg.
And then also the Austrian Empire is carved up, and one of the states that comes out of it is Greater Serbia.
Killing that Duke worked out great for him, apparently. And the Russian Empire they have 2 separate communist revolutions.
Yeah, don't know how that one works.
Yeah.
But there's a Menshevik. Western Russia is Mensheviks. They're back.
Yes.
And then Eastern Russia is Tsarist, still an imperialist rump state.
I guess Nicky is like in Vladivostok or something.
He's like, man, I love this city.
Yeah,
it's great.
I'm ready to leave at any moment if I need to. No Sarkozy Cello nonsense is going to happen to me. They ain't going to do me like that. Nicky is not going down like that. But really cool. I really like this.
And I like the implications. It'd be fun to explore the implications of some of this stuff. Or more, or I like how it hints at, but doesn't go into full detail about like these tanks in Paris or this American, this would be fun. It'd be fun to riff off of that and like into more details about that. You have this really interesting divergence in base to build off of to do something else. Mm-hmm. So really, really like this story.
Yeah, big fan. We got another one. And this might be the best one we've received. We'll see by the end of the contest who's going to get the beautiful golden crown at the end of all this. We'll see we'll debate about who we like the most at the end, but oh my gosh, this is amazing. Hitler's Doomed Gamble by William Brockus.
Yes, this is a Barbarossa story, and man, is it really, really good. It's, I really like this one. Very, very good job, Mr. Brockus. This was like as he put it, like a nose to a grindstone view of basically how does the Soviet Union more effectively blunt Barbarossa? And it's written very well. It's just very believable and very well done, and plenty of divergence, but also enough that it isn't like we're in a completely different world.
Yeah. The author very clearly knows a lot about the Soviet Union because there's like tons of people all over the place that most of them I recognize. Some of them were just like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the thing about it is basically what appears to be at some point, there's some divergence in the 20s where basically all the great Soviet pre-war theorists of deep battle theory and such, Mikhail Frunze, Triandafilov, Isherson, all these people, Tukhachevsky, all live on. Basically, somehow after Lenin's death, Stalin does not take full power, and there's actually Lazar Kaganovich is the head of the Soviet Union until 1939.
Yeah, they said that his government suddenly dissolves and Molotov ends up taking over afterwards.
And because of that, all these great leading lights of the Soviet army and theorists are still alive in 1941.
There's also all these politicians too who were famously killed off
in the purges.
Yeah. Bukharin is still there. Kirov. Well, Kirov was murdered by some random guy, but he's still alive too. Yeah, that doesn't happen. And it's so weird, Stalin's there, but he's like he's
part of the government,
and he's the general secretary. But the screwed up way
the secretary to the secretariat.
Yes, the man himself. The screwed up way that the Soviet Union works. I mean, just being the general secretary doesn't necessarily mean you're the guy in charge. Like technically, Molotov was head of state for some time in our timeline, but he was not the boss. He was not the vozhd. The vozhd, yeah, exactly.
So what basically this ends up happening is that the Winter War happens, but the Soviets conquer Finland.
Yeah, they win like instantly, and it is so well done. It's so awesome the way it's written because they roll over them, they win almost instantly, and then the author is like, of course they won, because there'd be no way that they'd be able to resist the Soviet Union.
It's the Germans. It's like, what did the Germans take from this? Like in real life, the Germans took from the Winter War that the Soviets were weak and not prepared, but in this, they're like, well, of course the Soviets trounced them. Like, they're a gigantic country that's many times bigger than them, which is great parallelism, because that's exactly how this stuff works in real life, is that you can half imagine that if it was only the other way around, the argument would still be the same, but just flipped.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, of course they got smashed because the Soviets are way bigger than them and were more prepared. So what happens is that the Germans decide to launch a Barbarossa-style attack.
And it's called what?
Operation Friedrich.
Yes.
And the Soviets are basically, there's a lot of push for a preemptive offensive against the Germans. But the Germans kick off Friedrich on June 14th, 1941, rather than June 22nd. And basically, the overall plan of it is pretty much similar to Barbarossa. There's army groups north, center, and south, although the overall goals of this offensive seem to be less haughty than you could say than actual Barbarossa. It's more about trying to trap basically the point is to destroy the Soviet army, the Red Army west of Kiev, and then we kind of go from there. And it's interesting because the Soviets basically launch a strategic counteroffensive almost immediately.
Operation Suvorov.
Yes. And the thing is that it's hard fought, and they talk about T-34s, and I like T-36s, a reference, because there is no KV-1, because KV is Klement Voroshilov, when Stalin had this thing about naming stuff after him and his friends, but obviously in a world where Stalin is not the prime mover in the Soviet Union, they would just call it, a T-36.
He's just another low-level general instead of being,
And the thing is that this counterstroke does not work entirely, but it slows the Germans down and it batters them, and basically the Germans bash their way through most of Belarus, through occupied Poland. There was a Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in this.
Also, Trotsky is the head of the Red Army at the very beginning of all this, because historically he was the head of the army, as we said before, during the Polish-Soviet War. So, I mean, they brought him back, and then he resigns because of,
basically of their failure. But here's the thing is that the Germans don't get to Smolensk until the end of the year, and even then a Soviet counterstroke pushes them back. It talks about Zhukovzin basically has the Belarusian front. An army group north makes headway against Vlasov, Vlasov's army group, which is Vlasov is the guy who in real life became the head of this basically Russian corps of troops fighting for the Germans. And in this, it talks about how they make a lot of headway because the Germans attack at one point an area held by Finnish troops who immediately turn and join the Germans against the Soviets. But it talks about how the Germans don't think that they can really get to Leningrad or put it under siege because it's just too far away. And by the way, in this world, when Finland's part of the USSR, they can't box it on both sides.
Yeah.
So
something that isn't talked about in the story, but might be interesting to like add in, is the fact that if the Soviet Union owns all of Finland, that means they've got a lot of access to the sea, and they're able to interdict shipping, which was happening between Sweden and Germany during the war. A lot of steel, all kinds of machine parts or whatever was being sent between them. And if it's just like a turkey shoot with Soviet submarines and stuff, just sinking stuff all the time, that really hurts the Germans really badly.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. So this one, basically, this Friedrich has ground to a halt by the end of the year, and Germany has made good gains into the Soviet Union. The Soviets have suffered, it said 4 million casualties, but the Germans have suffered over 1 million, which is a gigantic loss, and sort of battered pretty badly. They've launched a spring offensive in 42 that actually takes Kiev and pushes all the way to Rostov.
Fall
Gelb, case yellow.
Case yellow.
But the point is that the Soviets stopped them at Rostov, counterattack, Operation Venus. I liked it instead of Operation Uranus.
Another planet.
Uranus, sorry.
Yeah. Operation Mars and Operation Saturn, all that stuff.
All that stuff like that. So,
and there's an Operation Typhoon too.
There is. But it's a German operation, which I liked.
Yes.
But the point is that, and at the same time, the Russians launch Operation Poltava, which is basically Bagration in late 42. It's like against Army Group North and Army Group Center, and
isn't Poltava where the Russians beat the Swedes?
Yes, Charles XII. Poltava is the great victory against Charles XII.
Where you get shot.
Now, he didn't get killed until later. He survived Poltava, but his army was destroyed at Poltava.
Got it. Okay.
The great Swedish army, ending Sweden as the great power in the North, in the Baltic Sea.
Yeah.
So, and because of that, the Soviets basically are driving headlong into Eastern Europe in like 43 rather than 44. And it talks about the U.S. does get involved. It talks about Operation Bootstrap, an Allied landing in Italy, which causes Italy to switch sides.
But it's not good enough.
Not good enough. Well, because here's the thing: is it talks about how it ends. It's a great. I love the reflection at the end because it talks about there's two big points I want to make about it. One, it talks about how, like, well, Friedrich, maybe if they'd done better, maybe, there could have been some rump occupied part of Germany, or maybe even a West German state instead of a Germany entirely under Soviet control. And maybe the Soviets would not have liberated the Benelux countries, leading to the Congo Wars and the apartheid government in Batavia, which would be the Dutch East Indies, which is like, oh my God, I love this. This is great.
Yes.
Because it hints at the fun stuff, but we don't have to explore it just yet.
Yeah. The reverse Operation Market Garden. It's going in the opposite direction.
That's right. Yes. We got to get our bridgehead south of Arnhem.
South of what was the southern
Nijmegen. Eindhoven. Well, Eindhoven would be, but what I liked about it, and then it talks about this little thing about like, well, maybe Friedrich could have succeeded or maybe not, and if the Soviets wouldn't have, Poltava didn't happen in 42, it would have happened in 43, and if not 43, 44, and it's like a great, I thought that was just really, really great. Really, really enjoyed it.
There's one thing this story needs: a map. Put a map in here.
And footnotes. But he also acknowledged that at the end of it.
Yeah.
But he acknowledged some really great real sources that he used.
Yeah. He talked about David Glantz, our guy, when Titans Clash.
David Glantz.
Yes. What a guy.
Yeah, no, I really liked this story because it was like fun. Barbarossa is interesting, but it hit all the right sort of
But what I'm wondering is, where is Sergo Jonikidze? I must know. Where is he? I like the fact that there's like opposition inside the Soviet government, that that it's not so monolithic and like Stalinist, you could call it, where like, people are purged left and right all over the place. There's like Bukharin, of course, is in there. It doesn't talk about Zinoviev and it doesn't talk about Kamenev, but obviously Trotsky's still around and he's allowed to fail without being executed, So really cool.
Yeah,
I really
liked that story. Very good.
Yeah.
And a great world to build off of, just sort of like the last one. Like, what other stories could you talk about? These Congo Wars. I'm very interested in what's going on in the Congo Wars.
Well, people say, I think we've mentioned this in the previous episode, but the Congo crisis is, some people think of as like World War III, because like it was this huge conflict. It killed like probably over 1 million people, and it involved countries all over the world intervening on both sides of this Congo.
Just in spiral out to a larger war outside of the Congo.
But yeah, one really good.
Yeah, we really like these stories we've been getting, and we can't wait to get more. Obviously, we did this before the cutoff date, so we're still waiting for more. And there's actually some more that we didn't cover today that we'll cover.
Yeah, I read. We both read a story called "The Oregon War," which was really cool.
We'll talk about that one in the next one.
Yeah, we didn't make detailed
and the inaugural
notes.
bullet.
The inaugural bullet. Yes,
really like that one too.
We'll tease that one for you, but yeah, I can't wait to record part 2 of 2 ? Who knows?
It could be as many as we want. So we'll keep sending those stories in. Well, this will probably be released after that, but
considering how long these episodes take, absolutely, it's going to be after the due date. No doubt in my mind.
But we're happy that we're getting these.
Yes. And let's think here. Our email address, we're actually, I think, doing a good job of responding.
We're doing better now.
Yeah. Our email is talkernatehistory@gmail.com. Feel free to email us with cool maps that you've made, or
cool stories, or whatever you got.
The next story contest we do, or just want to send us a story and not a contest. I don't know.
Perfect. Well, we can't wait to see what we get.
Yeah. Do we want to do an ad for Throat Disc real quick?
If you'd like.
Okay.
My brother ordered some.
I know. Yes, your brother.
Did he tell you?
He did. Yeah, he messaged your brother. So I was playing Resident Evil Village the other day, and your brother messaged me on Steam saying, I bought some Throat Discs, and I loved them. And I was just so pleased to hear that. It was awesome.
Well, it's just like Mom used to make our Cubeb.
That classic Javanese pepper. It's so great. So Edgar Rice Burroughs, the guy who wrote Tarzan, big fan of Cubeb cigarettes, believe it or not.
Oh,
big fan. He said,
"Don't try and smoke Throat Discs.
Do not do that. Do not freebase your Throat Discs in a crack pipe. That's bad for you. Do not take it the recommended way, which is orally." But not in smoke form. Go down your gullet, not your lungs. If it's going down your lungs, you've done it wrong. But these hot Cubeb facts, I keep finding new ones on the Wikipedia page. It's fantastic. But if you want to buy Throat Discs, go to www.throatdiscs.com. That's DISCS.com. And you can find them on Amazon and stuff, but it's really best to buy them from the website, because that's the quickest and most convenient way to do it. And I'm a fan. I have some on my desk right here, and I just want to spread the gospel to the world that Throat Discs is great.
Well, you all have a good day.
Yes.
This is Matt signing off,
and this is Max signing off.
Have a good day, guys.